The system doesn't need to kill you. It trains you to kill yourself. And right now, your loyalty is loaded like a weapon, aimed directly at your own future. This isn't about being kind. It's about being programmed. Marcus Chen found out the hard way. 32 years old, successful on paper, destroyed by his own wiring. This is his tactical debrief. Thursday night, 11:47 p.m. Marcus sat in darkness, laptop screen the only light source. 9 months of work glowed back at him. 247 pages, every number verified, every projection battle-tested. His business plan was a precision instrument, sharp, ready, lethal. Investor meeting, Saturday, 9 a.m. He had 33 hours to do final prep, sleep 6 hours, rehearse 12, polish the pitch deck, run scenarios. Then his phone lit up. Tyler, 5th message in 47 minutes. Emergency, presentation dies in 9 hours, total failure, you're my only option. Marcus's cursor blinked on his own document. Final review phase, 8 hours remaining. His training kicked in before his brain could evaluate. 12 years of social conditioning executed its program. When someone calls for help, you respond. No calculation, no cost-benefit analysis, just compliance. On my way, send files. He closed his investor deck without saving the last 3 hours of work. 3:17 a.m. Marcus drove home, eyes burning. Adrenaline crash incoming. Tyler's presentation, flawless. Publication ready, career saving. Marcus's own deadline, hemorrhaging out like an untreated wound. But here's what Marcus couldn't see. The system had executed perfectly. He wasn't helping a friend. He was running installed code. Your value equals your utility. Dr. Robert Cialdini's research at Arizona State identifies this as reciprocity exploitation. Certain individuals get programmed from childhood to respond automatically to distress signals. No threat assessment, no resource calculation, just immediate deployment. Marcus was a human emergency response system, always online, always available, never compensated. Friday detonated in sequence. His mother, car won't start, can you come? 2 hours deleted. His sister, boyfriend crisis, need to talk? 90 minutes, gone. College roommate, showed up unannounced, life falling apart. 3 hours evaporated. By Friday night, Marcus had 11 hours before his investor pitch. No rehearsal, no sleep, no polish, no backup plan. His own critical mission? Background process, low priority. Someone else's emergency always ran in foreground. Saturday morning, 9:47 a.m., conference room, 4 investors. Watches that cost more than Marcus's car. Eyes that evaluated humans like spreadsheets. Marcus's presentation collapsed in real time. Slides out of sequence, numbers fuzzy from exhaustion, voice shaking, narrative incoherent. The lead investor cut him off at minute 8. We've seen enough. We'll be in touch. Translation loaded. Don't contact us. Marcus sat in his car for 27 minutes, staring at nothing. 9 months of development erased because he couldn't distinguish between cooperation and exploitation. Marcus wasn't stupid. He was poorly calibrated. Here's what the self-help industry won't tell you. Empathy is a finite resource, and in competitive environments, it's the first thing predators drain. Dr. Paul Bloom's research at Yale reveals something brutal. High empathy individuals in resource-scarce scenarios fail at disproportionate rates, not because they're weak, because they're exploitable. Marcus ran diagnostics on his own data. Last 30 days of communication, 847 total messages. Sent, 791. Received, 56. Ratio 14:1 outbound. In network terminology, he was experiencing a denial of service attack, flooding his own bandwidth, servicing external requests. He analyzed his calendar. Last 6 months, 23 instances of canceled personal priorities to service emergency requests from others. Return assistance received, 0 instances. Not one. Dr. Adam Grant's Wharton research identifies 2 categories of high-output helpers. Strategic givers maintain boundaries, optimize impact, build alliances. Resource depletion units operate until system failure, build dependencies, create vulnerabilities. Marcus was a depletion unit with an MBA. His loyalty wasn't building relationships, it was establishing him as a free access utility. In military terms, he was a forward operating base with no supply lines. High-value target, 0 defensive perimeter, maximum vulnerability. The system loves units like Marcus. They self-sacrifice without requiring external pressure. 3 weeks after the investor meeting collapse, Marcus sat in his apartment, lights off, blinds drawn. Phone active, but ignored. Tyler's message glowed. Got the promotion. Director of Marketing. Celebration dinner tonight. You coming or what? Marcus processed the intelligence. Tyler received the position Marcus had strategically prepared him for. The promotion Marcus had sacrificed his own advancement to enable. The role Tyler had 0 original qualification for. He typed, "Congrats, can't make it tonight." 4 seconds. Tyler's response loaded. "Seriously? After everything I've done for you?" Marcus read that transmission 6 times. Ran memory archive search, 1 instance where Tyler provided material support to Marcus. Search results, no data found. Something fundamental recalibrated. Not emotional, tactical. Marcus opened analysis protocol, created 2 lists in a blank document. Outbound support provided, 34 individuals. He listed them: family, friends, co-workers, acquaintances, former classmates, neighbors. Then, inbound support received, 7 individuals. 4 were paid service providers: therapist, dentist, accountant, barber. 3 authentic mutual relationships in a network of 34 operational contacts. Reciprocity rate, 8.8%. Marcus wasn't building a support network. He was operating a charity with no funding source. Dr. Harriet Breaker's research identifies this pattern as the approval addiction. Your neural circuitry confuses being needed with being valued. But here's the survival reality. People don't value what they can extract for free. What's abundant has 0 worth. Marcus implemented new operational protocol. No automatic responses. All requests require threat assessment and resource evaluation. Tuesday morning, 8:43 a.m. Cousin Brad's message. Moving this weekend. Need your truck and your back. You available? Old programming initiated compliance sequence. Fingers moved toward, sure, what time? Marcus executed override. Negative. Prior commitment. You'll need alternate resources. Send. His body revolted. Heart rate spiked. Cortisol flooded. Guilt cascade initiated. Ancient programming screamed, catastrophic error. Relationship termination imminent. But Marcus held position. Didn't delete. Didn't justify. Didn't negotiate. Brad's reply arrived 58 minutes later. All good. I'll figure it out. No anger. No retaliation. No emotional manipulation. Just acceptance. Marcus had been carrying operational weight that nobody had assigned him. The system had programmed him to self-deploy for any distress signal, and he'd been executing that code for 3 decades. Neuroscience shows it takes 66 days on average to establish new neural pathways. Marcus tracked the transformation data. Week 1. Declined 3 requests. Psychological resistance, extreme. Felt like betraying his core identity. Week 2. Declined 5 requests. Resistance level, high, but manageable. No relationships terminated. Week 4. Declined without explanation or apology. Revolutionary protocol shift. Realized he'd been over-justifying for years. Week 6. Pattern recognition fully engaged. The people who mattered, they adapted. They respected the boundary. The exploiters, they vanished. His network contracted from 34 operational contacts to 11 genuine relationships. But those 11 began functioning reciprocally. Week 7. Friend Jasmine called. "Hey, grabbing coffee downtown. Want to join? My treat. No agenda. No emergency. No extraction request. No crisis requiring immediate response. Just mutual time investment." Marcus almost experienced system failure in a Starbucks parking structure. Had to sit for 5 minutes processing. This is what actual friendship looks like. Month 3. Neural rewiring reached critical mass. Dr. Rick Hansen's research at UC Berkeley confirms experience-dependent neuroplasticity. Your brain physically restructures based on repeated behavioral patterns. Every time Marcus said no and survived, his amygdala updated its threat assessment database. Old data. Boundaries equals relationship destruction equals isolation equals death. New data. Boundaries equals resource optimization equals stronger alliances equals survival advantage. The old fear pathway degraded. New tactical pathway reinforced. Marcus initiated new business development cycle, different company, refined approach. This time he defended his operational hours like classified intelligence. No interruptions, no emergency overrides, no exceptions. 6 months later, second investor group, different city. Marcus walked in prepared, focused, mentally sharp, tactically sound. Presentation executed flawlessly. Result, full funding. First meeting, handshake sealed. 1 year post-awakening. Tyler's transmission arrived at 11:34 p.m. "Man, it's been forever. Everything cool with you?" Marcus evaluated the message with zero emotional interference. Response: "Yeah, focused on primary objectives. Hope your operations are stable." Tyler: "That's pretty cold, bro. Thought we had a stronger alliance than that." Old Marcus would have apologized, explained, attempted reconciliation, reopened the supply line. New Marcus recognized exploitation pattern, attempting to re-establish. Loyalty without reciprocity isn't friendship. It's resource extraction with social camouflage. He didn't respond. 3 months later, Marcus employed 2 people, built operational team, scaled infrastructure. And here's what the self-improvement industry will never tell you. When you stop being available to everyone, you become valuable to the right ones. Quality alliances don't require your martyrdom. They require your excellence. Marcus finally decoded the algorithm his brain had been running since childhood. You can't operate from depleted reserves, but more critically, you shouldn't supply units with compromised integrity. New operational doctrine. Loyalty is earned through reciprocal action, not given through social pressure, and definitely not unlimited. The research confirms it. Dr. Emma Sapala's work at Stanford shows individuals with tactical boundaries demonstrate 40% reduced cortisol, stress hormone, 60% improved sleep quality, 85% stronger relationship satisfaction, 200% better resource allocation efficiency. Marcus wasn't less cooperative. He was more strategic. He'd stopped being the system's emergency response unit for every minor malfunction. He'd started being the architect of his own survival infrastructure. His phone still received requests, but now he evaluated them through a threat assessment matrix. 1. Is this person reciprocal? 2. Does this align with my primary objectives? 3. What's the resource cost versus strategic value? 4. Am I being deployed or am I choosing deployment? Loyalty didn't disappear from his life. It developed. Tactical intelligence. The loyalty weapon is elegantly simple. The system rewards you for helping. Dopamine hits every time you say yes. Social approval. The feeling of being needed. But the system never audits whether you're being exploited. That's your mission. Real loyalty defends itself first. Weaponized loyalty destroys itself, attempting to rescue everyone else. Marcus learned operational doctrine the expensive way. His business now thrives. His alliances run deep. His survival probability increased 400% because he finally understood the core protocol. Being reliable for everyone else meant being unavailable for himself. Now he operates both modes. Loyal where it's tactically sound. Unavailable where relationships are compromised. That's not selfishness. That's survival architecture. The grid is failing. Your social programming will execute perfectly, sacrificing you first to save everyone else. Unless you rewrite the code. Stay dark. Stay silent. Stay alive.